Hi Ryan, how are you?
No, I'm doing good in yourself.
Great. I'm gonna now ask you this couple of questions here that I've been really fascinated about your journey. How did your journey to first technology KwaZulu-Natal Pty Limited start?
So it's quite an interesting journey. It's one that I've I've been a bit all over the place in my life. So starting out young as a kid, being born in 1988, I was part of a unique generation that got to experience the old way of life. Record players, Walkmans, tapes. The old school way of doing things, as well as the birth of the technology space. So
Wow.
being you know, video games, computers, all of that sort of came out when I was very, very young. So I got to see two ends of a spectrum where technology was almost non-existent. It was all paper and records and physical things. And then with the birth of the computer and video games
Hmm.
and all of the things kids would be interested in,
Hmm.
I naturally became quite interested in the technology space.
Hmm.
Um, Funny enough, majority through video games because I was a little bit of a nerd as a kid. I liked
Okay.
my sport. I liked my sport or whatever, but I very much liked tech and video games as well. So um, it was quite interesting because I enjoyed it, and all through my life, obviously, went through school, went to university, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at university. So I studied a BCom, and I majored in economics and finance. Generally, just because I was relatively good with numbers, and with a BCom, you know what they say? They say it's a bit of everything in the first year, and then you slowly start to specialize as you get on. So being I didn't know what to do, it seemed like the perfect fit for me, and that it's a bit generalized, and then you start to specialize a bit later. Um, from there, obviously, being in the finance and economic space, I got offered a job at a place called Trading Points at the time, and they were doing
Okay.
derivatives, equity trading, basically teaching people how to use something called the Elliott wave theorem, which is an old theory of historical price data. So I was there for probably about 2.5, 3 years when I was very, very young. Learned quite a lot there. But sorry, just hang on a second. I just need to get rid of this call. Um, so I learned quite a lot there, but when you feel like you're not in a space that you enjoy, I didn't really enjoy the space. For me, there's a lot of moral fiber issues with the finance industry, the trading industry, investments. Um, I find a lot of people try to look after themselves instead of looking after the end client, which I didn't like. Um, and naturally moved on to a company called Green Office after that, which looked after sustainability, printing solutions, that sort of thing. So making sure people print less. Um, and that was just something I took out of desperation at the time, funny enough, because my branch of that Trading Point company had been shut down at the time. So I didn't have a job at the time. So I sort of took the first opportunity that came my way. I was still young. I did that for almost 4 years, about 3 years, 7 months odd. Um, and through that, I obviously didn't really enjoy the printing space. Printing's boring. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
I mean, no one likes a printer. Printer can sense fear when you need a
Hmm.
document. It doesn't work. So
Hmm.
yeah, I sort of got an opportunity to interview at First Technology. I'd done a bit of research in the tech space, and they're one of the big players. So it's them, Dimension Data, and BCX, which are the basic big three. First Tech being privately owned, I sort of gravitated towards trying to get a job at that firm because, with private ownership, you get a bit more flexibility in the way you want to do things. Is the decision making tiering? There's not a lot of red tape, and if things make sense, then you can get it done. So I went for an interview there. It was quite successful. Got in straight away, sort of on the first interview. Got chucked in the deep end because I understood technology to a certain degree, but not to the in-depth degree that is required to actually do the function. So there was a big learning curve for me. Um, it made me sort of wish I'd studied in that space instead of going to university. So the university, for me, I'm literally using none of it at the moment, other than managing my own life and finances. It's pretty much null and void what I've done at my university career. So yeah, that's effectively how I got into First Tech. It's quite a weird journey, but I eventually ended up in a space that I love and enjoy.
Who are the people that you look up to in the technological sector?
So I'm very much focused on cybersecurity myself, even though I am a generalist in that I understand how most tech works from a data center, cloud, networking, security space. There's quite a few things I understand. My interest lies in cybersecurity. So there's a guy on socials. His name's John Hammond. He's a very insightful cybersecurity specialist. He's one of the guys that globally picks up weaknesses and trends in the market, and I look up to him. I follow him quite closely on what he's doing in that space. He's very technical, so for people that watch John Hammond, they'll understand. He deep dives into how things are done, but ultimately there is a lot of golden nuggets that he produces that helps you understand the global scale of things as well.
What have been your highlights on this technological journey thus far?
So the highlights are obviously there's quite a lot of them. It's where you solve a business case problem. So a customer or a company has got a massive problem, or they've got a major risk that's glaringly obvious, that's sitting there, that could effectively shut their company down if exploited. And by either spotting that risk or closing the loop on that risk, it feels good. It's a feel good feeling, because you're looking after a company, looking after people's jobs. Because ultimately, that's why 99.999% of people work, right? It's to earn an income and to provide for family. And if the tech space has got to a stage now where if you don't do the job properly, you can risk people's jobs. So there's quite a lot of stress in it. So when you do have good wins and you're successful in what you do, you feel good, and those are all highlights. They pretty much all make me happy and bring joy. So.
Have there been any lowlights?
Technology space, there's always lowlights. Everyone knows in the world of RT, anyone who tells you that everything's going to be 100% fine and cushy is lying. Things do go wrong. People do have oversight. Everyone's human. We aren't at the stage yet where AI is completely taken over and everything's running 100% smooth. There's lots of lowlights. People go down. Sometimes the network goes down, and it's not necessarily your issue, but ultimately you're the face and the person responsible for ensuring that the company's operational and they're producing their product or service. So that's probably the only lowlights that I can attribute is the slight failures in RT. And I mean, it's a market related thing. It's not a company or customer specific thing.
So what are your plans for this year and beyond?
So I'm actually going over to the US next week. I leave. So I'm looking at a lot more global clientele, because it's quite funny when you speak to people in Europe and the US, and they don't really look at South Africa on the map like we do. I mean, we look at them a lot differently than they look at us. And they don't actually understand the intellectual property and how certified and how good our South African engineers are and how good our RT and tech space is. So for them, it's actually quite surprising when they get onto calls with us and we're designing these big projects and these, we're looking at the RT landscape, and they actually get quite shocked at how good South African engineers are, and effectively the economies of scale on our labor versus what the guys are charging in the US and Europe is massive. I mean, we're half the price for the same project with engineers that are just as certified, if not more certified in some cases. So my plan's more on the global scale, and then I'm also studying towards something called my CISSP, which is a cybersecurity certification. Nice. And I want to try get that done, because that's going to obviously put me on a tier where I'm a lot more valuable in that space. And I manage things from 50,000 foot. I'm more of a strategic person than an actual button pusher, so to speak. So, that'll help me get to where I need to be in sort of a strategic role at a higher level.
Okay. My final question to you is: what are your words of inspiration for people that are wanting to join the technological space?
So this one I find quite funny because traditionally your parents will tell you go to university, and get a degree and do all this, which is I've done this journey, been there, done that. If you are looking to get into the tech space, that is absolute nonsense. You do not need a degree. You do not even need money to a certain extent. There's a lot of resources online, YouTube, Microsoft Learn, where these certifications, and I'm talking these certifications hold a lot more water than a lot of degrees out there, and they're a lot more sought after. You can achieve it for free to a certain extent until you have to write the exam to get the certification, right? That does cost money. But ultimately, if I had to go back in time in my own life, I would not go to university. I would do the certifications I needed to do, and you can do them in your own time, which is good. They're not scheduled, they're not structured. You can study as long as you want to. The pass marks are like 70 to 90%, depending on the certification, but you get time and ability to rewrite. You obviously have to pay for the ability to rewrite, and you obviously have to pay for the certification, but ultimately it's accessible to most people to learn it. You don't necessarily need the piece of paper to understand how it works, which is important because the internet is just a wealth of resource for you. So the youth that are looking to get into it have got no excuses. They can't say, "Oh, I didn't go to university, I didn't do that." It's all there on the internet. As long as you got an internet connection and the drive and the work ethic, you can get it done.
Thanks so much for giving me your time, and hopefully the first of many.
Thanks. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Cheers. Bye.